Welcome back to another episode of Practice Underwater. I'm here today with Matt again. This is the fourth episode with me and you, the banter episodes, if we're going to call them that. How's it going, man?
It's good. This was fun. I enjoyed all these episodes. We'll be back with another guest next week. But just to give everyone a window here, I'm looking at a shirtless George. It is 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. So he's up the crack of dawn. He's talking to me, recording right away.
Yeah, no. He said, why don't you go ahead and get on a shirt and then we'll get ready to record. And I said cuss words and I told him no.
He's a little irritable. I would be too at 5:30 a.m. So I understand it. But good to be here.
Yeah, it's funny. We have these times where we've pre-planned to record these episodes. And then Matt just sometimes just says, no, I won't. And that's what happened. So now we're here, squeezing this one in before I head out of town.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the middle of a 21-day eating cleanse. So I'm in day 3. So I'm a little bit low energy. It's kind of like sucking all my nutrients out of me. At least how it feels, although it's going to be good for me. But yeah, so I'm pushing through.
Well, there you go. And we won't talk about that. You're welcome, everybody. So last episode, we talked about my practice. And we talked a lot about, I guess I even talked, I was not expecting to talk about my undergrad experience.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So I kind of went through the whole thing. And I think we felt like, that was all about me and my practice. And now, I think we need to talk about our shared experience, here at Shared Practices.
Yeah, because I think you talked a bit about how you got started with Richard back in your dental school, 3rd year. And fast forwarded about a year from there. And then I think we kind of left off with Shared Practices. So I think it'd be, worth it for everyone to hear the whole evolution, getting up to the present day and, everything that we currently offer or will be offering in the future.
So we're going to start with then our recruitment of you then. It's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, I suppose that's about when we left off. Unless there was anything else before I came on. You talked about last time how Christine gave Richard the ultimatum and then you jumped in and then you started taking the reins and launched the course and everything. And then I think we kind of left off there.
Yeah. And I think, Richard and I think this is kind of it was a very big turning point when we got Matt.
When did you guys start to go into growth mode? Like, I don't even know this myself. Like, when were you like, all right, we're going to start bringing on new things rather than just a course or, new people?
So the turning point was something I've never talked about publicly. But I guess it was really, I had an opportunity to leave Shared Practices another company pursued me. And I had an opportunity to leave Shared Practices. It was a really hard moment because I was really considering this. Richard and it was a kick in the butt for us to really say, instead of going somewhere that has something built, let's just build it here. So this was in May of 19, and you had reached out to me a couple months earlier. It was let's talk about that honestly. So Matt reached out to me, and Matt was probably one of our most successful listeners that I knew who was pursuing, life coach training and with the intention of coaching dentists. And I had known this, and then you had reached out to me and said that you wanted to be a part of Shared Practices. And I asked you what your income goals were, and then you told me, and they scared me. And so I told you to go somewhere else.
Yep. He pointed me to a specific company, say, hey, maybe try to do there. And I guess that was middle of March 2019.
Yeah.
I don't know when it was that you reach back out after that, maybe about a month or two later. What was the reason to circle back?
Yeah, so I think it was when Richard and I, sort of looked at each other and said, okay, this has been a lot of fun. I think it was really hard for Richard to see me genuinely explore something else.
Yeah.
I think he was like, he gave me the green light to do what was best for me. But at the same time, I think it hurt, right? Like that would hurt. And and I think we both sort of said, no, we want to do this here. And, I think for both of us, I mean, if we talked about it last episode, but like Richard willing to put down his residency to keep doing this podcast, or me, now leaving work, but this podcast means so much to us. And it's not just the podcast. Like, I think it's funny when people describe Shared Practices, they're like, oh, you do a podcast. I'm like, I mean, yeah, I do a podcast, but I also do a lot of other things with shared
Hmm.
practices. But everything we do here, yeah, it means a lot to us. And I think that that is, something that I think in that moment really became apparent. So we knew Matt, and then I think we were like, okay, we're going to actually grow this thing into a business. And then Matt had reached out to us about coaching. So I said, let me circle back with him and let me see if we can land this guy as, you know, someone to, we called him the head coach at the time, to begin the coaching department. So that was what we did. How'd that go from you, Matt?
So like George, I was also considering another opportunity and kind of weighing them against each other. But I kept coming back to like the opportunity with shared practices being much bigger, and all the different avenues you guys were proposing to explore in the future that now we're in, a year and a half later. Um, yeah, it was a little clunky on the recruitment side. It was a lot of I'd talk to George, and then I'd bring up something he wasn't expected. Then he'd be like, "Oh, I got to go back to Richard." Then Richard would call me. So it was. I mean, we're not negotiators. This is not our strength. So it was clunky on my end too. But yeah, I mean, every time I talked to you, I would run to Ellen and be like, "This is what they're planning. This is what they're thinking," and like, I'm so excited for this, and that stuck through.
Yeah, well, let's get granular, right? Mastermind was one thing that we were big
Yeah.
on at the time. We talked about, um, and then I think in-person events. Did we bring up in-person events?
Yeah, it was a lot of what had me excited were mastermind, in-person seminars, and group coaching, which is like our initial foray into coaching. Um,
Was
was
group
all
coaching?
Yeah, it was group coaching and
Yeah,
pre-owners. Um,
and so yeah, so let me, Richard and I, yeah, it was funny because it was you're missing part of the workflow. It
uh-huh,
was me calling you, something being brought up, then me calling Richard,
of course.
then Richard going back and calling you with the answer, and then the other way around. It was like a you, and then if he heard something, then I would call to clarify.
Yeah.
And now, right, and so these conversations still happen, but now what has worked well is that I trust that Richard and Matt give me some wiggle room, and so I have these kind of these lines in the sand that I know where we go and where we don't go. And then when I can get on a call, I can sort of, and then I will sometimes, as the conversation unfolds, things will pivot and change. And I know that they trust me and that, I'm like, hey, I ended up going this way with it. And then usually it's okay. So that was something we learned. This was the first time that I think you're the first time we landed somebody from the outside.
Yeah. And we've learned a ton since then and have standardized a lot of these things that you can have that freedom, and we know like pretty
Yeah.
much the general terms that were going to be worked out.
And then now at this point, we sort of have like this framework for when people reach out to us to be a part of our team.
Yeah.
Because I think it was you first, and then I guess we'll talk about Suzanne and Alex coming up.
Mhm.
But I think those are the three big um, courtings that we've ever had,
Yeah.
Richard and I.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so let's talk about when you came on.
Let's see. That was May 2019. A lot of the first iteration of me being here was the group coaching program. That was
Yeah.
pretty much our sole focus, was preparing the webinar, launching ads, creating. I really tried to create a curriculum around it, that I felt was going to be most beneficial. Trying to bring in some life coaching stuff, and learned a lot in that first iteration. I think we made a lot of mistakes. We also had a lot of successes. Like, I think people got a lot out of the group, and we learned a ton. Like, I don't know how to run something on that scale. Um, that yeah, it was a great start into this coaching world. And soon after that, we were launching one-on-one coaching with owners, podcast soon after that. So it was a crazy first year looking back on it.
Yeah, I feel so fortunate to have the experience of the group coaching program that we did.
Mm-hmm.
It was so clunky in so many ways,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt like those students that were in there, or they weren't students, they were associates to become owners, they got a really great experience. I feel really proud of the experience we were able to offer. I think one thing that made it clunky was the way it was, there was like a weekly call with the whole group, and then Richard, Matt, and I would rotate between it.
Yeah.
And we were not privy to what the other people were saying on the other calls. And so it was like there was a lot of like, yeah. So I
Yeah,
think we've
we
learned
did
that it's
not
better to
watch
have,
the recordings and
yeah, it was
like,
better to have one person. That was our lesson there. It was better to have one person leading the entire program as opposed to us. And the calls were so demanding. I think that was one thing that we realized,
yeah.
how demanding group coaching can be on your time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's 10, 12, whatever number of people's they have now a direct line to you,
Yeah.
email, messenger, questions on the calls. Like it's a lot. And it's weird. It's weird that so I'm leading a pre-owner group now, and I'm the only one coaching them. It's actually a lot easier than the three, which is strange. Um,
Really?
yeah, it's a lot. Maybe I've learned a bit about like setting boundaries a bit, like making sure they're respectful of my time and keeping everything in check there. But yeah, it's much easier. George's letting out a big yawn.
I tried to mute the mic, let out a big yawn, quickly let it
It's
out.
okay. We already talked about it. It's 5:30. You're allowed to yawn.
Yeah, I'm just so bored with Matt's group coaching conversation. Let's move on. I'm kidding.
All right,
No, and
but
but I think and we did group coaching, and I think one of the things that we pivoted from is group coaching has this like launch model where you have to get everyone signed up at the same month, and then the whole program is like this linear thing. And then I think the pivot for us is really mastermind,
mhm,
and that's so much more rolling admissions, and at the same time we can have a lot of the same things. So I think group coaching is a lot of the ingredients that are now in mastermind we developed in those group coaching programs that we ran, because we've run a total of 3 now.
yeah.
So we have the one that we all did, then we have yours now, and we have Tyler's now, and every single one of them we've tested things, we've learned things, and now we're applying all those things to mastermind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the pre-owner groups and the student groups are perfect for someone who's in the exact right point in their career. So it really narrows down the pool of people who can
Yeah.
benefit from it. They have to be an associate ready to buy in the next 6 to 12 months. And that's at one point in the year, that's a very small number of people. Whereas in a rolling admissions, you can come in as you're kind of like, all right, I'm ready to pursue owning a practice. Let me join this mastermind that's going to propel me even quicker. But yeah, like you said, a lot of the general principles in the groups we have in our mastermind upcoming, we ironed out in these groups, and a lot of the things we're delivering on. So invaluable experience for sure.
And we almost started the group coaching programs that are running currently, that'll be done at the end of this year, with the idea in mind that at the beginning of 2021, those become mastermind groups.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was sort of our way of like kind of beginning them with momentum, so to speak. And then we sort of have something ready to put them in after we're done. So yeah, the group coaching world is as far as we know, it might come back in a different iteration, but in terms of the dental student and the associate to become practice owners, I think we're we've pivoted into a mastermind model.
Yeah, we have exited that world. It was a
Uh,
good 2 years.
so let's talk. So then we started with the group coaching program,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's when we started. And our initial idea was that we would help them get into ownership. And actually, Matt, I'm pretty proud of this one. Our initial idea is that we would help them get into ownership,
Mm-hmm.
and then that would serve as a pool of one-on-one clients,
Mm-hmm.
which 2 years later, or a year later, whatever that was, is one of our main, feeders into one-on-one clients is
Mm-hmm.
pre-owner services.
Yeah, because I mean, they're able to know us, start to trust us, to see the level of expertise and the deliverables we're able to offer, and the way we talk about pre-ownership with an ownership lens in mind. Um, leads them to, once they get into that ownership role, that they use our services for that as well.
So modern day, Suzanne, our director of coaching, really heads up the pre-owner services that we offer. And so what we've taken from this is, and I think the one thing that we found out in group coaching program is how frustrating it is working with buyers reps.
Mm-hmm.
They charge way too much, they take way too long, accountants charge way too much, and we really, I think we've come to a point in our company sometimes where when we are like, we're frustrated with the thing that currently is out there, we just make our own thing that's much better. And that's what we did with due diligence services. So, we still have that pre-owner service kind of handoff into ownership. The idea is that there's a very smooth, we help you evaluate the practice, we help you get your HR books and everything set up. and then we help you immediately in ownership and coaching. And so there's like this really nice handoff, or I guess kind of walk through
Mhm.
pre-ownership to ownership coaching. And that's really, we've moved that to our coaching department with Suzanne, our director of coaching.
Well, it's cool too because in our due diligence services and like the preparing for a practice phase of our pre-owner services, Suzanne or anyone in our coaching department will like set up a lot of things for ownership. We'll get the HR manual going. We'll set up insurance credentialing. We'll really like tee that ownership up where it's like you're in a better place than most people just jumping into a practice.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can even hit the ground running even further now using transition services, one-on-one coaching to kind of propel it. But yeah, it's just so frustrating. I feel like buyers are so taken advantage of by these buyers rep, by
Yes.
the CPAs, like all like the fact that buying a practice can cost upwards of $20,000 out of your pocket is just insane. Like,
How much did you spend?
I mean, are you counting my broker spend?
No. Wait, did
Um,
you have to pay a broker fee? Like a buyer's
yeah,
Oh, you use a double rep or whatever.
I didn't like use one. The
Yeah, no.
practice had one, and I had to pay it. So that was 15K. But no, 12K for an attorney. Uh, I don't know, 15K probably.
Did we use the same attorney or did you use a different one?
No, and he had to work a lot because of landlord stuff. But yeah, it
Yeah, I
was
had
mainly
a 14K attorney spend, and then a few grand buyer's rep stuff.
yeah. And then there's like CPAs that can charge sometimes 4K. There's buyers reps charge
How much
5K.
did your
Like
CPA charge you?
so, I didn't want him doing anything other than the bare minimum. So it was $1,000. I was like, just fact check a little these numbers, tell me it's fine, and that's it.
Oh my gosh, Matt, that's so you.
Yeah, I don't like to give them excess money.
Oh my gosh, guys. Um, so so then in our journey here, this really took us to one-on-one ownership clients.
Hmm.
And Matt was the first one to do this, and then I joined him.
So talk about your evolution and getting started with PBN a little bit and your relationship with Rohit and how this kind of philosophy all came to shape.
Oh, that's such a good idea. So we both had, it's funny because we started, and I thought I was a PBN expert a year ago, or this is a year and a half ago or whatever.
Hmm.
And then we reached out to Rohit. We said, "Hey, we want to coach. This is our vision. We want to use PBN. Our philosophy is, mindset and metrics. Matt is the mindset. He brings the mindset. I'll bring the metrics." And we sat down with Rohit and we went through extensively, like, all the different panels of PBN, all the different ways of looking at practices. And it was funny because I think you could see like the beginnings of our philosophy really forming from that. I mean, Rohit obviously understands practices very well, but I think the thing that, he doesn't have is being a dentist actually running a practice himself. His wife is a dentist who has practices, but I think he still has a lot of industry knowledge, industry mindset, you know, and so, I think he's introduced us to like patient flow, that the concept of, growing through patient flow is something that Rohit definitely introduced. We looked at all of our panels, a lot of the projections, but it's amazing how much of, and then we set up the shared practices dashboard, which was a big piece.
Yeah, I think that's important because like a lot of people will get PBN on their own and be like, "Oh, this is super overwhelming. There's tons of numbers, there's tons of tabs." So this is like our first iteration. Like we're gonna set this up super simply, but also have the most important numbers. George and I sat down with Rohit to create this, and like, I mean, now I don't really use many other things on the software.
Yeah, I only use a shared practices dashboard.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create the FMX. So we felt like we wanted to create one panel that we could look at every part of a practice and tell if it has any issues. And then if it does, we explore further. By the way, Suzanne had a lot of feedback for the shared practices dashboard.
Oh.
So I think there's going to be a second iteration coming soon.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah,
didn't know.
I'm excited. Yeah, because there is stuff in there that isn't super useful.
Constantly changing it though.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we'll go back to PBN and we'll sort of edit it.
Mhm.
But anyway, so we started with that, and that was our first like FMX. And if you listen to early Practice Underwaters, you can watch us flesh out our philosophy on air. If you really knew what the philosophy was, you could go back and listen to it. and see that in our early episodes, we just didn't know.
No, I
We
mean
didn't know as much as we did now.
it was very formulaic. Like I remember us using the percentiles, at least myself, like a
Yeah.
lot. Before they were actually on PBN and only we had access to them. Just using that as a crutch. Like we're figuring it out as we go, and gosh, we've come a long way.
Yeah, we have. Oh my gosh. And it's funny because I think at first the metrics felt independent of each other,
Hmm.
you know? And then as you understand it, and this is, it's fun because we've gotten to do this with coach training and we'll get to coach training,
Hmm.
but then you start realizing that the metrics, it's just like you use the metrics to sort of figure out the picture that is this practice. And you use them all to sort of inform you of what's going on. And I think when you reach, a level of mastery of this, you can really use, you just sort of, it feels very intuitive, and you're just sort of looking at them to get a feel for what's happening. And, we definitely did not start with that. And you can see it on air.
Yeah, I don't think I could go back and listen to one of those. I
I,
think I'd just cringe too much.
I tried, and I don't
Oh.
listen to the podcast. So like when it's recorded, and I don't listen to it again. But when we did coach training, I pulled up the very first interview I did with Jane, and it was brutal. It was so hard. The whole time I was thinking I would take it this way, and then I watched myself take it another way.
The opposite way.
Yeah, that's hard.
So then this is like summer of 19, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting our starting to get our ownership clients. Originally, I was going to be the only coach, and George was like, "I'll just funnel everything to you." And then I don't know, you got started with it somehow. I guess on the podcast, you're like, "I actually really like this." So you started coaching as well.
Yeah, and I want to add something. So summer of 19 is also the same moment where I had that epiphany for my practice. And right, I talked about that last episode. Those went very hand in hand of working with Rohit, developing the shared practices dashboard, thinking about my practice differently for the first time, unlocked it for me. So, in a time of my ownership experience, I think initially I was still feeling like I wasn't good enough, right? I was like, I'm not ready to coach these people yet because I haven't done anything. I'm frustrated in my practice. It's not growing. Like I can't help these people. And then as I started realizing, it was just like 2 or 3 months later, like things started clicking and I started seeing momentum, and I was like, okay, I got it. And then that's when I felt like I had more control, and I realized that, I wasn't as far off as I thought I was. I was just a little off. And then that was when I thought, okay, and that's, I started taking on certain clients that were reaching out to me specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it almost like you figured a lot of things out that you knew could help a lot of people. So you almost felt this like need to like, okay, now I'm
Yeah.
ready to share and help.
And so I think we both were taking on clients, and we both had the goal of 5 clients. That was what we both started with. And we said, okay, we'll just have 5 clients at a time. We'll do practice underwater, and it'll just be this fun thing we're doing. And we were like, and we'll get a couple clients, and then we'll do a webinar to get the rest of our 5 clients each. That was
Mm-hmm.
the plan. And a webinar for shared practice has always been the way we promote things. We like it because we can educate, we can inform, we can do an interactive Q&A, and we can talk about our products and services. So we've always liked webinars, and I have been waiting so long to do a webinar on coaching. And
We still haven't ever done one.
well,
That's
this is coming out the 23rd and the
23rd. We'll be
27th. There was a webinar on coaching for the very first time ever. But Matt and I, we laugh at it now, but at the time we thought we would have to do a webinar to get the number of clients that we each wanted, 5 each. And it was like maybe 2 or 3 months later. I think it was 2 months later. We each had 5 clients, or like he had 6 and I had 4, something like that. And I think that was the first moment where we said, uh-oh, we need to totally change the direction of this company because this is not working.
Well, it didn't go like that. So we came to that point, and I wasn't thinking what you were thinking. I was just thinking, all right, I'm just gonna like work harder. I don't know, raise my
raise
rate.
your fees, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like
such a mad thing to do.
fit them in somewhere. I'll do Sundays or something. Like maybe I'll get down to 3 days at the practice. And then you came to me with this idea. No, actually, let's like bring someone on the coach with us. And that I was not ready for that. Like this is my first experience of George's scaling a business, and this is not inherent to me, and it makes me uncomfortable. So this was tough to agree to.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about the experience of, because I've noticed it too. And I remember in my experience of owning a practice, I remember my very first year owning it, I noticed I got a lot of resistance from my office manager. It was like every time I'd come to her with something, she'd be like, this is nuts. Why are we doing this? And then it would like kind of reluctantly happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, you know, she is 100% bought into everything that I'm about, where, I there's not as much explaining, there's not as much convincing, there's just kind of an inherent trust that, that she knows that I'll lead it the right way. And with you, I kind of feel like we've had the same evolution over time, where I think now, there's a lot more. I mean, we still bounce ideas back off each other. I still have to convince you of things before we do them, but there's a lot more of an inherent, like, I guess, trust. I don't know if that's the right word. Talk about that.
Definitely is. You really showed me the need of building infrastructure before demand comes.
Yes.
That isn't my MO. My MO would be, do we get more demand? Then we scramble and get some infrastructure in place. So that cycle, and we followed that cycle now for the last year and a half of having infrastructure ready for when demand is there, we can deliver on it. And I mean, I've just totally seen the light in that way, that I trust when the feelings come up in me that, oh, we're not ready for XYZ. We probably are. And even if we're not, we'll be ready at some point. So it's worth it to do it now and get everything ready.
And he means ready, like financially.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we're not right.
Yeah.
So Suzanne was that first iteration of that for me.
So I'm going to take a step back because, right. I mean, there was two ways we could have gone with this decision to scale. One was we bring on more dentists to coach dentists. And the other was we move to a non-dentist coaching model. And I had just sliced shared practices up into thirds, bringing on Matt. And that still hurt. I went from owning 50% of this to 33% of this. And I didn't want to go to owning 25% of this, and then 20% of this, and then whatever the next 16.6% of this, and so, yeah, I was like, I don't want it. And I told Matt, I remember telling this on the phone, I'm like, we can't keep slicing this company up every time we need another coach.
Yeah.
And we have to think of a way that and then we thought, okay, realistically, if I'm a dentist making an amount of money that I'm making, and I want to coach some other dentists for fun, that's not a really scalable, predictable model. Like, we can't grow that way. And I think the realization we had in just getting the 10 clients that we got in the very couple of months that we started this, we were like, there's a lot more demand for this than we originally realized. And there's a lot more need for this. Like, people are not running their practices with any type of objectivity, and there's so much need for what we do. And so that was when we said, okay, we'll have, non-dentists. And the non-dentist is different because you can take an office manager, and for us, a coach has to be a former office manager. And so it's the role of, you go from office manager to coach, then they're upgrading their life, and they are, it's an upgrade from their current situation to now what we're offering them at shared practices. So it's something that you can do with regularity. It's something you can do predictably. It's something that you don't have to offer equity for. And so it just made a lot more sense for us to move in that direction. And then that's when we pursued what we called the director of coaching, which is Suzanne now. But we really wanted somebody who is an experienced coach, who also has experience training other coaches. And the fact that Suzanne existed was, I would still think, one of our biggest breaks as a company.
Existed in the Phoenix area, which we are only looking locally to Phoenix. And we didn't know.
We made the decision to build a Phoenix team. This is when we made a decision that we're going to start building a team local to Phoenix with our location will eventually be in Phoenix. This was November of 19, where we made that decision, or like October.
Yeah. So every like hire we've made since then, who aren't like an intern, have been local in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Our operations manager, our other coaches that we'll talk about in a second, all in Phoenix.
Yeah. So we have 15 on our team, and every single person that, is a non-dentist or non-intern is in Phoenix. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you kind of just stumbled on Suzanne. Like, we didn't even know we needed all these qualifications and experiences. And talk about how it's worked out.
Oh my gosh. She's the best thing that has happened to shared practices, minus, probably Matt, me, or Richard. Like, it's just a huge player for our company. And it's funny because she doesn't come on air a whole lot. A lot of her work is behind the scenes. So you guys don't get to see just how brilliant she is. I remember I sent somebody over there. It's people reach out to me every once in a while wanting coaching, and then we'll talk. And then this individual client I sent to Suzanne, and she got started with coaching in our coaching department. And then she sends me an email. She goes, "You hire well." And he's like, "Yeah, I do." But Suzanne is, oh man. So I found Suzanne, and the things about Suzanne's experience, I remember I called her and she thought I was just like a dentist wanting in-office consulting in my practice. That was,
you were trying to hire her.
Yeah, basically. She thought I was trying to hire her as a coach. And I don't fit her typical client. Her typical clients are not 2 years out of school. Her typical clients are on the other end of the spectrum where they're looking to retire. And so they want to like build up their practice or get it organized or get it ready for a transition or one of those things. And so I reach out to her and I'm like, by the way, I'm not looking for consulting in my practice. I have a consulting company myself and we're ready to scale. And I was really impressed with your experience at Mercer Advisors. And Suzanne was the lead in-office consultant at Mercer Advisors. So she was in charge of all other 47 in-office consultants. And so she had experience hiring, training, quality assurance. And I think that's always been one of our biggest anxieties in this direction is quality assurance. Yeah. We
are super sensitive to this.
Yeah, we still are. We are very adamant that our coaches have to be extremely dialed in and ready before they see any of our clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we take this very seriously because we know, we don't want there to be any drop-offs going from us coaching to Suzanne to, people beyond her. And we're creating a lot of systems to check on all this, to see how everything's going in the moment.
Yeah.
Quality assurance.
And I think for us, anytime you scale, you want it to be an upgrade. And I think that's kind of a backwards philosophy, especially for Matt, who, maybe initially thought there'd be a drop off. I'm like, actually, when you do it right, it's actually better for everyone that it's done this way. And go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll give everyone an example. So, when George and I were to coach, we would constantly run into issues with staff, with, talking to the dentist about implementing things in the practice and getting a lot of resistance from certain staff members, and extremely hard to work through that with a client, like through them to the staff. Like, it's really tough. So now that we're bringing on office managers as coaches, they're offering services where they will talk directly to staff, skipping that awkward front to the dentist to the staff member, and can remote into their computer, can show them, whatever it is they're struggling with. And connect with them on like I'm a manager, you're a manager kind of level, which is like so. I feel annoyed that this was like my biggest frustration. Now, like, we've just like figured it out, and they're going to have a much easier way.
Yeah, and it's funny because like Ashley Hovis, right? Her and I are really good friends, and she, you think if I would coach anybody personally, it would be her, But I told her very clearly, I'm like, you don't want me coaching you. Like, you and I talk enough. And you have Mastermind as a place to have your doctor peer mentorship relationships. What you need is somebody working directly with your team and helping you get organized. And so, it's our coach, Caitlin, for Ashley, working directly with her office manager, Judy. And a lot of that relationship happens on that level. Ashley's on the calls, but it's office manager to office manager implementing the things that we want done. And it moves so much faster that way. Because they have, we can teach all of the metrics and the analytics-based practice management philosophy that we have. And then they have previous office manager experience. The front is always the area we're always working on. And they understand that very well. And it's honestly like when clients would come to, I have clients before Suzanne got on, I had clients with like 80 plus AR days. And I would keep telling them, your AR is out of control. Your AR is out of control. And I didn't have anything past that to give them.
My first client had an AR issue the whole first year of coaching him, like
Yeah.
like above 60 the entire time, and constantly like mentioned it. But like a manager to manager would have fixed that up a lot quicker.
And so now when we have an AR issue, we just remote into their practice management software. We pull AR reports, our coaching department will pull AR reports, go through them, figure out where the block is, meet with the office manager, sort the thing out, and then it actually improves.
Yeah.
And it was like an AR issue was so frustrating because it was like that's the one thing that I just got nothing for, you know?
I would have to tell people to outsource, and that's if you ever have outsourced AR, that's an expensive one. Like
Yeah.
they take a big cut, or it's like a big setup fee. Like that's a big one.
And then the other one was, overdue recare, calling overdue recare. I tell Dennis, have your front office call overdue recare. But now we like talk to their front office and train them on how to call overdue recare. And it's like, yeah, it's just it was this complete mindset shift in coaching when we could go directly to team.
Well, like think about a new owner, right? Their big like frustration and areas they don't know well is all in the front. Like stuff in the back, they've worked at other offices. They can set those kind of systems up. They've co-diagnosed with hygienists, but it's really the front. They have just very little to no knowledge of, and that's the biggest growth area that we can offer through our manager coaches.
And it's funny because so I know you had this philosophy, I don't think I had this philosophy, but I remember you were pretty big on it. You were like, when I was looking for a coach, I wanted them to be a dentist because and the thing that everyone always says, I want someone who sat in my seat. And
that's because of your podcast.
I know, but like
you instilled that in us.
Did I really?
Yeah, by having Justin on for all those miniseries, I think that message got out there that like, yo, you want a dentist to be the coach.
And talk about that mindset that you had, and talk about the shift that you've seen in watching a non-dentist potentially, do things that you can't do as a dentist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think about. I haven't thought about that line in forever, so I can't even like put myself in it anymore. It's totally not necessary. You need touch points with the dentist, which that's what Mastermind is, right? Like you'll have some like clinical, product services questions that maybe these coaches don't know as much as they don't know as much as dentists. So that's where they have Mastermind to bring that stuff to. So being coached by a non-dentist, I don't know. It's like such not a big deal that I don't even know how to like put myself in that other perspective.
Well, we'll talk about Mastermind in a minute because it is solving that need. But it's funny because I want to go back to Suzanne. I remember we wrote down and we had this idea that we go, okay, she's going to coach for roughly a year without any coaches underneath her. And then after that, we'll hire one. We'll get them trained. Then we'll hire a second and get them trained. And it's funny, every time we've walked into shared practices, thinking one thing was going to happen, the demand always creeps up on us in a way that we didn't expect. And so we've spent a year now building infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And we spent so long building infrastructure, and we opened up Suzanne for coaching, I think in July. I want to say July.
Sounds right.
So she's only been available for like 3 months. And after her first month being available, almost half of her spots got filled. And we were like, uh-oh. We have an issue again.
It's happening again.
Yeah. So then we said, okay, we have to. But luckily, we had spent a year developing infrastructure and fleshing out our entire philosophy.
Yeah,
and
came on with us officially. What was it? End of January, February, maybe around that time.
Well, so we courted her from November to the beginning to December, and then she's the beginning of January. She was on.
Okay, yeah. So 7 months of us creating the philosophy, all the back end stuff, where when we scale even more, like a lot of that's ready.
And spoiler alert: Matt is not a patient person. No. So this was brutal. Like these months of developing, infrastructure, Matt was like, okay,
especially during COVID, where like obviously the demand for anything just fell off a cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. So we spent a lot of time during COVID. Actually, COVID was great because we could get a lot done really quickly. And so we fleshed out, and internally, I'm really proud of the systems we have on the coaching level. We have a lot of organization and structure behind it, and that gives us confidence now to sell. Because I think if you look at, I'm going to talk worthy rivals. There's this philosophy, or there's this book by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game. And one thing he talks about is worthy rivals. And it's this idea of you compare yourself to companies, and you sort of look at them um, for guidance, or you kind of see pros, cons. What do they do well? What do they do better than I? What do we do better than them? And I'm not going to call out a specific company, but I'll tell you, Spear is one of ours, and there are two others in our space that we call worthy rivals. And one of them, what happened to this company is they grew really quickly, and they took on more than they could handle, and then they weren't delivering on their products and services very well because they scaled very quickly without a organization. Things broke, very normal, and their reputation got. What'd you say?
I think people know what company this is, but
I'm not saying the name though. I mean,
but I think it's pretty easy to figure out.
That's okay. And and their reputation got ruined. And I have no clue if that company's products or services, how they perform today, but all I know is that there was hiccups in the early iterations of their products and services, and that ruined their reputation forever. And so for us, we really view them as a cautionary tale, and we miss on the other side of. I mean, it's really tempting, and it's really hard to run a business when you know that you can increase your revenue dramatically in a short period of time if you just do something and not do that thing, because you're not ready. You know what I mean? Like if we were to just take on or like really market for coaching clients right now, not right now, but like 6 months ago, if we just really pushed it and got as many clients as we knew we could get, it's really tempting financially to like grow your company that quickly. But you just have to know, between all of you, that we're not ready to deliver yet. And it's almost like the demand is not an opportunity. It presents a problem. It presents a problem of like, how are we going to service it? And so, we've been erring on the side of major caution.
Yeah, we've been looking back on really cautious because, like, I know, like, we really want to deliver. I mean, and reputation is everything, and like, we want to be the company that delivers every time. Yeah. And unless we're 100% confident that we can, we're not going to jump into areas. And trust me, I'm more of the jump into areas. But thankfully, I have George and Richard, who are very well like, no, it's like we're not ready for that, and or not a smart idea for these reasons. So we have a lot of good checks and balances internally.
Yeah, and so this is when Suzanne filled up very quickly, we thought, oh man, another pivot. We got to really hire a coaching department. I think we saw right, like we were planning on her taking a year to fill up the amount of clients, and then through her first month, she was halfway full in her roster. And so I was like, oh man, like that's a lot. Mm-hmm. And so then we thought, okay, we have to bring on coaches more immediately. And then we hired, we have a team of 3 coaches that are done with coach training now. Coach training is brutal. Yeah. It's a lot of training. But again, we're adamant on quality assurance and delivering a really top-notch coaching service. And so we put them through hundreds of hours of training. And, they spent alone, like, I think they almost spent 100 hours with me, at the beginning of coach training.
They're on all of our coaching calls. They're being taught by Suzanne, George, I alone. It was a grueling time for them.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's I think, I don't know, we all had these moments of pride, and I think Suzanne had more of them than you and I did, where you get to watch the light bulbs click. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a moment where I sat there and told them, I think, you, Matt, Suzanne, I said, you guys, Matt, Suzanne, and I understand this philosophy better than anyone else on earth. And it was really cool to like have that moment. And like, they got to that level of mastery where you're like, you're really good at this. Like, yeah, and it's like, it can be taught. I think that gave us a lot of good feelings about our philosophy, is that it's teachable, it's repeatable, it works, And so, so that's what we learned in coach training. And, at this point now we have a department. We have Suzanne, our director of coaching, and then we have 3 coaches underneath her who are ready to go and seeing clients. And that really helps us, because it allows us to then really, and if you think about it, right, impact is really big for us. And it's the ability to change people's lives. And I think coaching for us has been the most life-changing service we offer. It just totally transforms. I mean, if you think of someone who started coaching and then now their practice is growing in ways they never thought was possible, their lifestyle is something they never thought was possible, the amount of money they make they never thought was possible, and we get to show them all these things. It is the most life-changing service we offer.
Yeah, I mean, I think of James from Practice Underwater, great example of that. And we really just wanted there to be opportunity for everyone who wants it, for that to happen for them. Like we don't want to have a capacity issue. We want whoever wants coaching and wants these kind of results and take control of their practice and grow it, that this is available. And that's why we do everything on the back end. We'll start with these three. There'll probably be more.
Yeah, in December we're hiring more. We'll have to.
Yeah. So, we wanted to stay ahead of this. So whoever wants it can have this.
And it's interesting because, I remember there was a point in my practice that I reached where I said, okay, it's just adding providers. I had stable office manager in place. We had our training protocols in place. We had our systems in place. We had a way of doing things that was very solid. And then it was just a matter of growing and hiring accordingly. And it's really exciting for us because we've spent 1 year working on our infrastructure to the point where we can now say that coaching, mastermind are both scalable offerings that we can bring on people and we can deliver on them and we can make sure reputation is going to be solid and all those things. So for us, that's been a big progression. And now I think we need to talk mastermind.
For sure. I mean, I was just looking at the count. A full year of infrastructure. That was tough for me, George.
Yeah, and
a full year
of infrastructure for Matt.
Man, glad it's over.
Yeah, seriously.
Just kidding. We'll keep building on it, but yeah.
No, but it's like things will come up, and we have QAs in check, and we'll continue to audit, and we'll continue to tweak as we go. We're not done forever, but the bulk of our infrastructure build was for sure in the past year.
Yeah,
brutal.
All right, so talk mastermind. If you want to talk the who, what, how.
Yes.
Triangle.
Yes. The who, what, how hierarchy. So that's something I'll talk more about in the webinar. Mm-hmm. But we had to, right? There's all this terminology that you haven't heard before: PSS ownership models, productive solo, profitable group. The flow diagram of like none of you even heard of the flow chart that we use. So there's all this internal lingo. This is a lot of the infrastructure we've built. Is what is our philosophy? How do we teach it? How do we put it in words? Like if we were to have like a shared practices philosophy textbook, what would be in there? And part of it is the who, what, how hierarchy. This is kind of the evolution of metrics and mindset. So I think we distilled things into how, what, and who. So how is how you do something. Think of them as systems, right? This is the Breakaway Business Masters course. It's all how. This is, the systems. I don't want to call people out by name, but if I think of a consultant who sells systems, you can think of a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is how you do things. We felt like at shared practices, we innovated what? And I think this is in one area we innovated. We said, it's not about how you do it. It's about what you do. And we felt like our analytical process allows you to identify gives you the focus on knowing what to do so that it then, we come up from the philosophy of it doesn't matter how you do something if you're not doing the right thing. So we start
at the right time.
Like,
what to do when.
So what
the roadmap.
And that's what our analytics really offer. And part of our avatars, and I haven't talked a lot about avatars, but we're running out of time, so I don't want to get into them right now. We have our avatars, we have our KPIs, we have everything that we do analytically. We have point A, point B. It's all internal lingo that we use to figure out what to do in your practice to get it to where you want it to go. And then this is an area where we realize we're still missing an ingredient. And we are missing who, because I think a lot of the growth in both of our businesses and everything has had to do with our mindsets and the way we look at things and our ability to get through discomfort. And this is what Matt was alluding to with a lot of the mentorship that comes from doctor to doctor coaching. And this is where we said, okay, well, mindset we're missing mindset. We have metrics in here. How is the systems? What is the metrics? But we're missing mindset. And then that's when we said, okay, we're going to make mastermind. And we have this picture, you'll see it in the webinar, but it's called the who, what, how hierarchy. And it's like a triangle. And who was on the bottom, and that mindset is really the base of everything. So we feel like we start with getting you thinking about your practice the right way, thinking about things the right way, having the proper mindset. and then moving towards looking at your analytics, figuring out what to do, and then looking at how to do it. But it's funny
Yeah, I
because
think
can we do a Facebook how rant? I feel like there's a Facebook how rant in here.
Uh, of course. I mean that is what Facebook is. It's a constant threads on everyone asking, how do I do this? How do I do that? You know, it's just, and that's like, you need those answers sometimes. Like, they're useful,
Yeah.
but people just
Like,
always just think of that thing.
yeah.
Like
And
they
I
always
think
just
the
think of
thing that
how.
I always gets me is, why do you think that's the thing you should be focusing on right now? Like, go on Facebook and all those dental groups, and if someone's going to say, like, I could just go pull up with the first post that comes up, it's going to be like, how do I use
You
it?
want me to do
Yeah,
that?
pull up a post. Just pull up a how post. The first thing you see.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's brutal. I mean, you listen to these people and you're like, okay, first of all, why is this like your mindset? What about this is what about this is being informed by a proper mindset? And then second, it's like, well, what about this is, the whole thing. And so, yeah, it's just brutal.
It was looking for a drawer storage for endo.
Oh my gosh.
That was the first one I
Oh,
saw.
that's so brutal. Okay, so I think we've realized that, right? Most people tend to operate, most consulting companies in our industry and most dentists tend to operate in the how I do things. How am I verifying insurance? How am I scheduling? How am I? And we're not doubting that all those things are important, right? We have systems in place. We have Suzanne who has all these systems that to teach all the proper hows. The thing that we really believe in is how doesn't matter unless it's the right thing. What? And you won't be able to see the right thing unless you have the right mindset. Who? And that's
Yeah.
where we reached out to Alex Sharp, who, is he is the most embodiment of what mastermind is out of any human that I've interacted with as a part of shared practices. Alex is the person that is most, him and I have always had this relationship where we bounce ideas. I mean, him and I have had very similar trajectories of practice. We have the same type of practice. We have the same coach back in the day. And, there was areas where we were frustrated sometimes and we would call each other and talk. And he's always had that, like, hey, I'm a peer of George's. And when I needed to bounce an idea off of somebody or when I needed to kind of hear a peer to peer kind of conversation, I would reach out to Alex. And he's probably one of the biggest, I mean, Peyton Keller aside, one of the biggest fans of our podcast.
Mhm.
And so it was just this very synergistic fit. And so Alex that was our third courting that we've done. And I guess there's 3 or 4 more, but we won't talk about those because they're, um, but like Alex Sharp is our director of mastermind. And the idea was that everything that we want from doctor to doctor mentorship and developing mindset, way to think about paying your staff, leadership principles, all of these things, and helping you get through the philosophy and how challenging it can be at times. That's why we have the mastermind, and we get really real in there. And it's not like, hey, share your wins. It's like, no, share the moments that suck, and have everyone support you through them and know that you're not alone in those moments that suck.
Yeah, I mean, it's where you and I both go to voice those vulnerable thoughts and feelings and ask for support and ask questions for the group. But that's where we go. That's where we turn. And same for the other people in the group. And I think we just realized too that, in a monthly coaching call, there's so much to cover on the what's and how's that there wasn't time for this.
Yeah.
So another, motivation for creating this structure, where now you have several touch points with other dentists with similar mindsets and who will stand for you to grow and won't let you operate out of fear and can mirror things to you and inspire you. And it's really such a cool offering. I really have enjoyed it even more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I think it's so initially, Mastermind was initially going to be only for coaching clients. And then we opened it up to having Mastermind only clients. But if you're a coaching client, you have to have Mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
We don't give you an option. It's not like you can opt out of no. Mastermind is mandatory. And then we have Mastermind only clients that are not in coaching. And I think, we price the offering, right? I mean, the offering is, I'll just talk pricing. It's $975.
Yep.
And, it includes your PBN subscription and your Swell subscription. So in total, it includes like $550 a month of services you're already paying for. So really, we view the offering as it's $400 of an expense. And we went in, I mean, that's relatively low expectations, right? You're charging people roughly $400 a month. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not expecting, we tried to make it so that even, we could for sure deliver. And I am amazed at how much value I'm getting out of it
Mhm.
and how much everyone else is
Mhm.
getting out of it. It's been one of the most pleasant surprise. I knew coaching was going to be a slam dunk because I had coaching and I did coaching. I think Mastermind has been the most pleasant surprise on our front of how well it's gone.
Yeah, because we've gotten to now that critical mass of people where we're having 10, 15, 20 people on every single call, gotten to that level where like we have enough perspectives that it really makes everything we do in it so helpful. And it's only going to get even more helpful as we grow even more, have more perspectives, more leaders coming into our groups. Um, it's delivered on everything we thought it would and then some for sure.
And so I think the last thing we have to talk about is HQ.
Oh gosh,
I
we
can't
saved
believe
that for the last five
I
minutes.
can't believe we. Okay, hold on, Matt. Talk about it for a minute. I got to tell
Oh
my
my
next
gosh.
call I'm running over.
Sure. So everyone knew George told last episode that he's creating this 1920 up practice in Phoenix, giant building. And he was going to have this space on the top floor, which was about 5,000 square feet. That was going to be prime real estate. He was planning on renting it out to some tenant. And then we thought, hey, like we're talking about building a headquarters in Phoenix. Why not use the space? So George agreed to it, thankfully. And he has now been, can you say who you're working with, or is
Yeah,
that on the,
Design Ergo. So
okay, just go ahead.
I think so. Look, I am building my practice in a very. It is the hottest, the second hottest intersection in Phoenix right now in terms of development of commercial real estate. So this is a very prime location. And if you look at the practice, like Matt, you've seen the site. Like for a dental practice, is that not like one of the best locations you've seen?
Oh, I mean, it's next to a Starbucks. It's next to a huge church. It's right on a busy street. It's on like a mountain. It's like gonna have a beautiful view. It's gorgeous.
And development costs of this real estate are going to be really high because I have to spend 200 grand cutting into this mountain. And so the whole thing is going to be this, really immaculate project in terms of cost. And this is the most expensive commercial real estate to lease right now is in these areas in the entire valley, which is pretty incredible because this is in Scottsdale. It's not like a super nice area. It's just really in demand.
Mhm.
And so I was thinking, why would we put the shared practices headquarters in the most expensive commercial real estate part of the valley that is not Scottsdale, right? Every dentist comes to Phoenix, they go to Scottsdale. So I always imagined our center would be in Scottsdale. But then we were in Monterey talking about this, and I think the guys helped me realize that there is a lot of value in having our headquarters above my practice, so
Mhm.
that somebody who comes to our center and takes an education class with us or comes and visits the headquarters, they'll get to see my practice too. And it's kind of on top of the practice. And my practice is like, sometimes people will get asked like, Richard, like, is your practice kind of like operating the shared practices way? And it's like, I think there is no practice that more embodies the shared practices philosophy than mine, the way it
Mhm.
operates. And that'll always be the case. And I think I'm very committed to always pushing the boundaries of what's possible in practice ownership through my practice as an extension of shared practices. I intend to own it for a very long time. Like this isn't George is going to make money off shared practices and sell his office because of it. It's like, no, George is going to run a practice forever.
Yeah.
And I want to be the most innovative practice where we do things the absolute best way and create that perfect practice. And so we're putting our center. So there's going to be an education center. You could think of other companies that have their own facility where you can fly to it and take courses,
Mhm.
and it'll be
Mhm.
above my practice in Phoenix. We plan on doing a lot of happy hour events I think that's one thing that we all really enjoy is just hanging out with dentists, like not necessarily like in an education setting, but just like in a
Right.
more informal, having fun setting. And so there'll be a lot of those at that office. So like think about it. If there's like a big event in Phoenix that weekend where we know a lot of dentists from out of town are going to be there, then we'll host a happy hour at our place. And we're kind of taking you up to our little nook and cranny of Phoenix, where we are. And we'll have our center up there. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's a giant lounge with a giant terrace with the view of the mountain over there, and a or education space that can fit up to 50 people. And yeah, it's gonna be like really open concept, and the designs look. I mean, the floor plan looks amazing. I can't wait for the actual design of it. Everything. It's gonna be wild.
And it's cool because it's so we thought about it, and COVID taught us a lot. And I think the thing that we've known at Shared Practice, right, we have 15 people now as part of our team in different capacities. And we've realized that like this is like we're like right, if you've heard us, we've just been spending a lot of time and money and effort in infrastructure, and now we're getting to the point where we're ready to like actually, we're kind of a scalable base where we can add people and have it know it'll go well. And so 2 years from now, when this is ready, by the way, 2 years is the timeline on this build. 2 years from now, when it's ready, like the number of employees, we can't predict the number of employees we're going to have. And so we had to build what we thought was a scalable workplace where like the COVID has taught us that there's going to be a work from home hybrid model. So we're building this entire workspace for a hybrid model where people work from home and then have common meeting space in the center in the entire valley. So
yeah, because we really don't want to build this and have to outgrow it in X number of years. And now we're stuck with a new build in another most expensive part of Phoenix.
Yeah, we don't want to do that again. And, I think the only way we see that happening is making sure that we have a scalable workplace that can have a company of 100 people can still work out of there. And that was the thing that we feel like we can do now. So
we could talk for the HQ for days, but we're over an hour here. So we'll respect everyone's time. George, promo or the webinar a bit. I'll give the dates and details.
Yeah. So like you've alluded to, right? Like we've never been able to actually talk about coaching on air or on like a webinar because too many people would buy it and we wouldn't be ready to service it. And now we finally are. So we have a webinar coming up on upcoming Tuesday. If you're listening to this when it aired on October 23rd, October 27th is the webinar. And, I'm super excited. I'm super excited because I get to talk about my journey and how shared practice has evolved over time. And I talk about my practice specifically. I show a lot of PBN snapshots. I talk about our clients. We go through some kind of testimonial type things. And then it's going to be an epic Q&A. I don't know if I have as much in me as the last Q&A. That was
100 questions. That was a big one.
That was like a 90-minute Q&A. That was brutal.
That was nuts.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pull that off again, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling that night. We'll see how much I take on.
Okay, great. Well, this is awesome. I enjoyed these last 4 episodes bantering back and forth, and I hope to see everyone October 27th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on this webinar. It's going to be awesome.
Going to be awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.